Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you. I don't think the issues aren't. Let me start. The executive director mentioned two things that I don't believe are issues before us. Number one, that there's a need for desal facility. That's not something that we decide. That is something for the locality, for the applicant. He also indicated that talked about the problems with the previous project and that it was not an appropriate site. And if it wasn't ultimately the right site, then it should not get the approvals for testings and for the wells. And that is my fundamental problem with this, is that how did this project get here? If there was no analysis of alternatives, if there was no, basically the environmental studies that would normally be required, and I have had a lot of experience with the Army Corps and Fish and Game in my own city, and that's with the San Luis River. They both have had to work together, and I don't see that happening here. I see that what the Army Corps has done is basically self-certify itself and say, well, there are no impacts or there's minimal impacts, and therefore we don't have to do anything other than what, just do this testing. But this testing ultimately must be because they believe that this is where the project's going to be. And if so, why are we wasting time and not complying with allowing the proper procedure to go forward? And that is that there be a level of environmental impact studies. And that's my problem. Whether it be NEPA, whether CEQA, for us it would be at least with CEQA. NEPA is much more detailed study, which I didn't understand why the Army can jump in at this point and not some later point when the Canada Community Services District would have simply had to comply with CEQA. So without an alternative sites analysis, it's difficult for me to be able to point to a record and say, okay, this is why we're here. This is the foundation. What I'm seeing is that we're responding as if we are Fish and Game. I don't see that as our role. I see that ACE and Fish and Game should be working together, and that we review what they've done and say, okay, this is consistent. So
I understand your concerns, and as I indicated, we have worked with the district for many, many years. We have looked at alternative sites, and that's one of the problems that we had the last time in terms of that site, because it was one that we felt was not appropriate. We did look at alternative sites for purposes of whether or not this is something that we could recommend go forward. The problem is that it's very expensive to do the testing, and doing the testing to see whether or not this would even be a feasible site for a facility has been separated from the decision of whether or not there will be a plan. So looking at the question of whether or not there's enough water that can come out of this site and whether it's of the quality that can be used, that's an important question to ask before you decide to put all the money into actually preparing a project proposal that includes the desalination facility, which will require a detailed alternative analysis. But we didn't think that was necessary at this stage for this project, given what we already know about the other sites for the testing.
And Mr. Douglas, I would ask you then, why would you ever do a CEQA or a NEPA if you first go ahead with the project, some level of that would have something more than minimal, and I think that we can at least say there's going to be more than minimal impacts to the environment with this testing. So why would you ever then first do the CEQA or comply with the law with CEQA or NEPA? Why not allow for some other level of studies? I just don't see how, I mean, we can all say that. The San Luis River, we could have said that. There's different things that we can. The Deputy Attorney General, I believe, would like to address that. Yeah. If I could take.
This is not one of those situations where by approving this project, you invariably are setting in motion a approval for the ultimate facility.
Well, then why am I feeling like I'm getting on a train right now?
Well,
could I interrupt here for a minute? We have our court reporter needs to take a break.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Thank you. I think I'm just going to go ahead and make my statement here. I don't feel comfortable that this is properly before us at this time. The fact that the Corps did the self-certification, decided on their own without any kind of review, neither public or by any other agency, bothers me. It's difficult, in hearing again what the executive director said at the very beginning, that if this is not ultimately the right site, appropriate site, and i.e. taking into consideration environmental impacts, then we should not approve testing in the wells. And since we do not have that information here, no alternatives analysis, no impact studies, no studies to base monitoring requirements, and the fact that the California Fish and Game did request environmental studies, the fact that Cambria Community Services District did start an EIR and then suddenly stopped, it's to have this kind of a record and then say, oh yes, it's ready and this is consistent. I don't see that this is consistent because our laws and even with the NEPA would require some level, and since there was no other agency that agreed with them, not even the Department of the Interior, I'm going to urge a no vote. Thank you.